Are we recording?
Yes.
All right. Great. Here we are on The Blind Man in Black, and we have two very special guests here from the Nevada County Left Coalition, Tor and Yinnon. Thank you so much for being here. And the bottom line is I know very, very, very little about both of you, but I'm excited to learn more about you. And I mean, the reason I invited you is because I'm so grateful for the work that you are doing in Nevada County and mutual aid work. And it's really, it's beautiful, amazing, important, critical work that needs to be done in this very, very precarious fucking time. So I'm so happy that you're here. And I just want to explore with you where you started and how you developed your worldview and how you got here to forming the Nevada County Left Coalition. So thank you once again. I'm so deeply honored to have you, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about both of you. So whoever wants to start, just tell me about your life and some of the formative stuff that created you.
Go ahead.
You want me to go, Yinnon?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having us, Brian. And yeah, this is an exciting chance to talk about this stuff. And also, have you been talking about the Cooperation Nevada County yet on your show so far, or has that come up? Or
I haven't, because we haven't, done an official press release, and we're still trying to.
Did I just ruin the?
You ruined
it.
You actually ruined it, and I think we should just end this right now because
I mean, I feel like you set that up though, because you did tell us right before this started that you didn't edit anything. So
no, it's okay. It's okay. You ruined it, but we can push through and. No, it's fine. It's totally cool. I haven't mentioned it because I wanted to talk about it when we actually had the sign. The sign is holding this up.
Oh.
And so we don't have a sign. I know this seems kind of trivial, but I think it's important.
No.
And
signs are important.
Yeah. Signs everywhere. A sign.
It has been a long saga with the sign.
What's that?
It has been a long saga with the sign.
Yeah, it has. But everybody's busy, and we're in the pandemic. Well, let me ask you this: how are you both holding together during this shit? Like, what? I mean, I had an anxiety attack today almost because I was in a meeting with public health about the fact that we're in tier purple and we're double the threshold for tier purple. So for COVID-19, and it's fucking scary. And how are you both holding together through this?
I'm not holding together.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, I'm not. It's been insane. And with the two kids in the house, and Tor knows my kids, it's not an easy task on good days. So being stuck at home, it's really difficult. And then I'm a terrible teacher, and my son tells me that all the time. So I'm not really holding much together, but what can you do? Just gotta power through it.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty. How does it feel when they say you're a terrible teacher? Do they say that, or is it just like implied?
Oh no, it's nothing's implied in my household. Everything's right out on the table. And they're right. I'm not a good teacher. It takes a lot of training to be a good teacher. And I'm no substitute to his friends or anything, like all the social part at school. They don't want to be with me all the time. They're right. I don't want to be with myself all the time either.
Well, I want to be with you. So I'm glad you're here. Hey, Yinnon, your audio is still a little bit low. Let me ask you this. Does your computer have a built-in microphone?
That is a very good question that I don't know the answer to, but I can speak up a little bit. Is this better?
Yeah, it is better. But if you want, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you want to experiment while Tor is, talking, you're welcome to do that. But you do sound better.
I'll see what
I
can
just
do.
want people to hear you. That's
Okay.
all. So how are you holding together, Tor? Is everybody telling? Do you have people telling you you're a horrible teacher?
I don't actually. I just have a dog and it loves me every day unconditionally.
Well, that helps.
It
That
actually
helps.
does help. I've had kind of a weird experience under COVID. I used to have anxiety and it actually went away under COVID.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
I mean, in all honesty, it was probably just completely random, like everything else in this universe. That said, being a human being, like we generate narratives about these kind of things. My theory is that when COVID started and we started doing our mutual aid project with the NCLC, and then when like the George Floyd like uprisings kicked off and became pretty involved in like what was going on in the street, like these were like very tangible things to deal with, right? Like getting food to people in the middle of a pandemic or confronting white supremacists in the street. And those things themselves were like kind of scary and intense, but they were like real and you could like sort of reach out and touch them, in some cases. Like, or I guess in the case of white supremacists, they actually would reach out and touch us. But I mean, maybe it was that shift from kind of like the imagined the possible terrors of everything that was coming into like real kind of tangible things that made like the anxiety side of it go away. But I don't know. I mean, it was I would say within 2 months into COVID, it was 80% gone, and it's now 100% gone.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, would I recommend this as a strategy to fix anxiety? A global pandemic? Maybe not, but it worked for me.
Wow. Jesus. I was going to get into this shit later, but I kind of feel like since you mentioned it, let's talk about the Black Lives Matter march that happened. When was it? It was a couple months ago, 3 months ago.
August 9th.
So can you describe like the scene for those watching and listening and what happened?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think a lot of folks don't have kind of the full picture of what happened. And I think part of that is the charges that have been brought after the event. They charged 3 people.
Could you go back a little bit and describe like what happened though? Like there was a march in Nevada City, and describe kind of just replay what happened. Just to set the stage.
To set the stage.
Because I wasn't there, so I want everybody to know who's listening to know exactly what happened.
So there was a march in Nevada City. It wasn't permitted. It wasn't, nobody reached out to the cops and asked them for permission. I mean, it was an anti-police march, right? I mean, that's really what the George Floyd uprising is about. But that said, it was about the most innocuous kind of event you could imagine. It was a lot of very young people banging on pots and pans in Nevada City. But right before, a few hours before the event, kind of rumors that it was going to happen got into some of the local quote unquote patriot groups. And they very quickly organized like a resistance to it. And so when we came down Broad Street, they were standing in front of the Nevada Theater, maybe 20 or 25 guys at that point. And they came out, and there's like a brief moment of kind of squaring off, and then they started to assault people in the march. And this sort of initial round of assaults went on for maybe 10 or 15 minutes as we went down Broad Street. And I would guess, and this is what I think people don't get, but I would guess during that time, like 50 or 60 different incidents of assault occurred. Like I personally was shoved, hit with a flagpole like multiple times, and you just looked all around you and everybody was getting hit, punched, body slammed, thrown into cars, punched in the chest, hit with flagpoles. And it all happened right in front of the cops too.
Yeah, they were right there.
And what did they do?
They didn't do much. They spend most of it blaming us for turning around when we get hit and instigating the violence. That was kind of their line of reasoning why they're not doing anything. Kept telling us, keep going, keep going. If you turn around, this is just what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, actually, there was.
Could you talk a little bit louder, Yinnon? Because I think what's going to happen is people are going to try to raise their volume to hear you, and then they're going to get it blown out by Tor.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I personally had my kid with me, and I had my kid on my shoulder. They were standing on the sidewalk while all the scuffling happened, and then it started kind of spilling close to us. And in fact, a guy shoved me while I had my kid on my shoulders and got in my face. And I know there was a cop about 5 feet away from us who didn't even approach and ask me if I was okay or anything. They basically did nothing. And then I left shortly after and then came back without the kid. But basically I could hear the cop saying, keep going, don't turn around towards the people who are punching you and hitting you. You're instigating the violence by doing that.
Yeah, that's extremely clear, and it's very well documented on video. And in fact, it's not totally true that the cops did nothing, because they did in fact intervene at one point. There was one guy who was getting repeatedly assaulted, one of the marchers. He's getting shoved and pushed. And the one time when a cop really kind of stepped in and intervened, the cop grabbed that guy who was being assaulted, put him in an arm lock, dragged him into a side street while the fascists or the patriots or whatever you want to call them were cheering and clapping. And the cop shoved this guy up against the wall and told him that he needed to stop instigating the violence by turning around and facing his attackers.
And this was one of the marchers.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Oh, fuck. So how now I heard that there were young girls that were shoved by 50-year-old men, and was that happening as well? Like,
yes, a lot.
That happened a lot. They definitely targeted the smaller people in the march, and they targeted young women with
cowards.
Pushing them, kind of cross-checking them with their flagpoles.
That's horrible. Ah, Jesus.
So, I mean, so we kind of, there was this initial kind of like melee, I guess. And then we got through them. But at that point, there was no way to get back to the cars. And there was a group of us, and we couldn't break up and scatter or anything. We felt like we only had safety in numbers at that point. So they had cut us off from our parking lot. And so we went across the Broad Street Bridge, and they followed us. And then a group of them anticipated that we might be coming back across the Washington Street Bridge. And so they went up there to that bridge to cut us off. So, I mean, there was it's in retrospect, it's kind of impressive the degree to which they were organized and ready to really continue this attack. They weren't interested in letting people get away. They weren't interested in letting people get back to their cars. So they chased us up into the other side of Nevada City. Well, the other group cut us off. We were going to come back across the bridge, but they formed a line, so we couldn't go that way. So we went up Washington Street to turn right on Nevada Street. They chased us up the street there. Then they cut us off as we tried to go down Nevada Street. There's another confrontation. Another round of assaults occurred. Friends of ours were friends who were attacked. Then we got through them at that point, and they followed us down all the way back to the parking lot. And it was towards the end there where some of the most vicious assaults occurred.
And were there police there?
At that exact moment?
Yeah, it seems like the police did not come up Commercial Street at all. Once we hit the march hit Commercial Street, you didn't see any police there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Tor. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. And I mean in the end there, the Jimmy Smith and the other guy who attacked this guy who was assaulted there. I mean, the thing about that was that they were people who were extremely hostile and extremely belligerent for over an hour, right? And any kind of a sane version of what people think policing is, these are people who would have been checked and removed from that situation at the very beginning. They were exhibiting all kinds of signs of aggressive behavior. What do we call them? Pre-assault indicators, right? They were giving every indication that they were going to attack somebody. And in fact, Jimmy Smith had committed multiple assaults prior to this moment, during the march, I mean. And so when at the end he actually did really hurt somebody, it was, we all saw it coming. But we're kind of powerless to stop it.
And did either of you see a council member of Nevada City, Daniela Fernandez, thrown off her bike?
I wasn't around when that happened.
Oh, okay.
So I missed that.
Yeah, no, I talked to her right after that, and she was pretty banged up. And then she ended up marching with us for a while.
How did you feel as all this was happening? What was going through your mind?
I personally was pretty scared, I gotta say. First, I was there with my child, and I realized that I need to get him home as soon as possible. He was pretty shaken up. And then I returned to the march, and pretty much as soon as I got back is where that assault that Tor was describing happened, and I was right next to them. So all of it kind of all I saw was violence. I never got to see all I saw is real violent confrontations that day, and it was pretty scary. I thought it was really interesting how right off the bat the police decided to handle this situation. That it was very telling. And the only reason why I came back is because I had a sense that it's going to be bad, and I wanted to be there to help my comrades.
Wow. I mean, that took a lot of courage. I mean, you could have said, fuck it. I don't want to, I mean, that was, that was very courageous. So when you went back, I mean, what did you see?
So when I went back, the first thing I saw is the group waiting on the Washington Bridge, anticipating. And then I met the marchers right at the bottom of Commercial Street. And I kind of ended up with the end of the march. And I walked up with the person that was kind of bringing up the rear of the march. And about 2 minutes into it is when that assault happened. And from that point, I kind of try to, as much as.
What was that last thing you said? Did we lose him, Tor?
He's still there. His just mic cut out.
Okay. Hey, Yinnon, you may want to try using your internal mic if you're having issues with that headset.
Okay. Let's see what it's doing here.
So, Tor, I mean, what was going through your mind?
I mean, it was just kind of a complete fight or flight response mode kind of a thing. It was very chaotic. The Patriots were mixed in with the marchers. And so at any given point, there might be people behind you who are attacking you. There might be people in front of you. The march got spread out quite a bit. And there were so many just kind of incidents going on all around that it was very hard to know where you should go or what you should be doing. I will say that after the initial kind of assaults occurred, we were able to regroup, the march was, and kind of collect ourselves and I think defend ourselves more successfully from them. And like that was good to see. Like my dog is trying to get on my chair here. But and it went on for a long time too, right? This wasn't like a 5 or a 10-minute thing. I mean, this was an hour and a half, and it was just complete survival mode for that time. And again, like being cut off from our vehicles, really feeling like we couldn't just go home. There was no out, right? The only out was back through them. They showed up with weapons, right? I mean, like there's a guy at the end who's got like an American flag taped an aluminum baseball bat.
Oh, wow.
They were drinking, like you can see them drinking openly on the street. I think many of them were very intoxicated.
Mm-hmm.
They were very ready for violence. Like they were very hyped up, very eager for it. And I think the other part of the story that we missed too is kind of like the chatter on the right-wing forums leading up to this. And that chatter was graphically violent. Like people were calling for murder and torture, and nobody saw this until afterwards, but that was the tone kind of leading up to the event. That's where they were at mentally and emotionally at the time, and frankly, that's probably still where they're at.
That's horrible. I mean, so this was definitely premeditated and planned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, just moving forward, like what, I mean, I know that there's been some Patriot Blue Lives Matter rallies. I know that at the Root Center, which is the Nevada County Government Center, they were basically using that as a staging area to have a caravan of lift trucks with American flags, and they were driving through town, and being pretty obnoxious, I heard. So I mean, what did the event do? Like, how did it make you feel in terms of wanting to, continue, doing marches?
So I was less involved with the marches and everything that followed than Tor was. But I got to say that I was really, at the end of the day, I was really proud about the fact that there were still events that happened afterwards. There were more marches that happened afterwards. And the one thing I did get involved is basically the community self-defense effort that was happening. People volunteered to try to offer some kind of security and some kind of protocol for when things like that happened. And I thought that was mostly very successful in keeping the instigators away, the fascists away, with the events that happened afterwards. And I thought that showed a lot of resiliency. I was very proud of our community for doing that.
I had not heard about that. Yeah, that's amazing. So is that still in play right now? Like, is that
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks mobilized after that event and said, okay, well, if we're being attacked like this, how do we defend not just ourselves? And I think Yinnon touched on that, right? Like in America, you kind of have this concept of self-defense, right? And that's like this, everybody kind of gets that, right? Somebody breaks into your house and you can defend yourself there. You get mugged,
Right.
you can defend yourself.
Right.
And this is a very kind of an individualistic notion.
Right.
And I think it's tied in with, I don't know, the history of this country and private property rights and probably like white supremacy at some level.
Yeah.
But there's a different notion, which is community self-defense, which is that it's not our responsibility just to protect ourselves, but we also have a responsibility to our fellow community members around us. And I think what Yinnon was talking about in terms of like a mobilization that occurred after that march, I think it's where you saw this notion kind of blossoming and people getting very serious about it and starting to understand it and understand that if you want a safe community and you can't rely on the police, which we saw on August 9th, then what do you do?
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, that's really intense. So we can come back to this, but I wanna go back a little bit. I want to understand who you are and where you what your roots are. Where are you both from, and how did you get here? Yinnon, are you up for it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Israel on a kibbutz, so small socialist community, about 800 people, and all property is shared. Grew up in what they call a kid's house. So I had my parents' house where I'd spend a few hours every afternoon till the evening, and then most of my time was with kids my age in the group. We slept together. We cleaned the kids' house together. We did chores. We took care of animals. We farmed together. We did all kind of stuff. So I come from a very like strong community, and in Israel there's the law is that every person gets drafted when they finish high school, and I knew very early on that that was not really the path for me. I identified myself as a pacifist back then. As a teenager, I was very curious about people's struggle. I read a lot. I read a lot of Gandhi. I read Martin Luther King, and I read a lot of other stuff. I was a big like anything I could find about Che Guevara. Definitely was a communist back then. and preach to my fellow students about the how great communism is. I feel like a lot of people didn't like me because of that, but that's all right. Um,
But how did that's pretty. So at what age were you at that time when you were reading those?
I was 16, 17, 18, 19. That was like my big heyday for
That's
that.
early. So what attracted you to those books?
So a couple things. One is just my tendency to identify with the underdog and my curiosity for these
Cut out Yinnon, that underdog.
Is it internet or is it microphone, you think?
Can you guys hear
Well,
me?
now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. A lot of people were happy to share books and articles with me because it's kind of a nice novel thing to help a teenager find its way. So yeah, I kind of always liked reading. It was kind of a thing where in my household, when it was time to throw the trash in the newspaper and take it down the street, it would that was my job, and it would take about 3 hours because I would everything I didn't read in the newspaper during that week, I had to like go through and read every article. It's always been kind of news and all that stuff was always my passion. So it was time to get drafted, and I refused. I was a conscientious objector. It became a big deal to the point where lawyers helped me get that case to the Supreme Court, and eventually I was excused from serving in the Israeli military. And as soon as I got that off my off my back, and knew I didn't have to serve in the military, I moved to the United States. I have a lot of family here, and I moved to California with the plan of like working a little bit, being with family, and I always wanted to travel up the coast into Canada. But that never happened because I got stuck in San Francisco. I had tons of fun and it was wonderful, and I never made it past Oregon. So yeah, and then I met my now wife right before she was heading to nursing school in Boston. And while I was living in San Francisco, I kind of got involved with the ISO a little bit in San Francisco. And even though I was never a member, I would go to all their like demonstrations and events.
For those who are not familiar, could you say what that acronym is?
Yeah, so it's they're the I think it's International Socialist Organization. I think that's what it stands for, but they're a pretty established socialist party. Were pretty established socialist party.
Mhm.
And of course, all the anti-Zionist, pro-Palestinian demonstrations. I was always out for those, but I never like joined anybody in a more organized fashion, and I didn't do a ton of organizing. So
Before you go any further, I got to ask you, how did your friends and family deal with the conscientious objector stance? Like, and what was how did what happened? Was there, you know,
so for the most part, people did not handle that well. So I did get a little ostracized because of that. My friends kind of, I don't know. I think they at that point they kind of knew that this is who I am, and I did manage to like keep some of my friends, but some people were really upset with me, especially people who are the older generation, people who already served, people who took a lot of pride in the fact that they served in the Israeli military, and in the small community, that became a real problem for me and my family. We really got ostracized in our small community. Stopped being invited to social events, and there's still people to this day that are incredibly mad at me and my mom, especially because she supported me a lot, really supported me. Yeah, they still haven't forgiven us for, yeah, I don't know, not serving in, not beating the head of Palestinian people. I guess.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was tough, and it lasted for a long time. So it's lasted from for 4 years, when I was just turned 16 till I was 20. So it was a really long road and a long time to deal with all of that, and a lot of unknown status. Like I didn't know what's going to happen a month from today, if I'm going to go and they're going to end up putting me in military prison for 30 days. I just didn't know. It was kind of
Is
strange.
that the standard punishment for being a
It is.
conscientious objector?
It pretty much is. Very few people get exempt for being conscientious objectors in Israel. And the only reason why I didn't end up in that place is because people were happy to support me and help me bring that court to the Israeli Supreme Court. Made a court case out of it. So I got really lucky as far as that goes. I had a lot of
Did it make the news?
not a lot of news, but
Right.
it made some news. There was never a court decision because the after the second hearing, the panel of judges basically told the military lawyers that you need to find a solution or we're going to rule against you. And that point, 2 days later, they exempted me from service.
Wow.
They found me unfit for service.
Wow. On what grounds?
Just unfit. That I'm not soldier material.
I mean, they probably weren't wrong.
No, they're correct. But yeah, they do
Wow.
have the authority. They had the authority to do that all along, and they really didn't want to help create a precedent. And when they were
Right.
against the wall, they just played their last card, I guess.
So let's go back. So San Francisco.
Yeah, so I was always like out in demonstrations and meeting people, and but I never got really like deep involved in any like political organizing in San Francisco. And then I moved to Boston, and then in Boston, the group of friends that we made there and all that, I felt like even kind of more of an alien, because here's communist, and none of them really cared about any of that, and I had like no outlet for it. So I kind of that is the point where I started kind of keeping to myself until we moved back to California. We moved to Grass Valley, and
So what brought you here?
so winters in New England were horrible, and I had to get out of there. And my wife finished nursing school, and we just had our first kid.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we decided to take. She would take travel nurse jobs around the country, and we bought an RV, and we went first to Florida, then we went to Southern California. Then we came up to Sonoma, and we spent about 6 months in each place. And we traveled around. We got to see places, and that was our way to get back to California and kind of figure out where we want to live. But while we were in Sonoma, our lease was about to end, and the place where we had parked our RV flooded, and we had to leave at 3 a.m. before a flash flood would just carry us away.
Oh no.
Yeah. And we already discussed to go the next step was to come to Northern California, further up north and to this area, because we had friends that lived here. So basically we bailed and came up here and hung out with our friends, and it seemed like a nice, lovely community where everybody's nice to each other. Little did we know that that's just on the surface. So we ended up here, and about, I don't know, like 6 months since we moved here. Meanwhile, we had another child, and 6 month in, my kid made good friends with another kid at school, and we got close to that kid's mom, and we got to talk, and she got to hear my politics, and she said, you got to meet my friend and cousin. They're also communists.
Wow.
And yeah, small community. So I ended up meeting the other two communists in Nevada County, and yeah, that's Tor and Sarah. So that's how I ended up with in the NCLC.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, delighted that you're here. So, Tor, tell us about how you came. Where are you from here?
I am born and raised Sierra Nevada Memorial Hospital.
You have that tone. My wife does not like living here. I mean, she's from here as well. I mean, she really wants to go back to Oakland, and that's where her tribe is. But is that, do you have an underlying? Um, what are your feelings about Nevada County?
No, that was not trying to convey that
Okay.
tone. I do like it here.
Right.
It is, I would say, like backwards in some ways, and a lot of that has come out in this past year.
Mm.
But it is in other ways a very nice place to live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my story is much less interesting than Yinnon's, I think. And I think for me, like my politics really evolved. I mean, like Yinnon, I think I always grew up with on the side of the underdog. I always had a very strong appreciation for when something felt wrong or hypocritical. But my politics didn't really truly radicalize, I think, until the Trump election. And for me, that was just a very eye-opening moment. And my ultimate takeaway was that this was not an anomaly, that Donald Trump wasn't some sort of a meteor out of the sky, that something had produced him, and that something was kind of the American mix of capitalism and white supremacy. And so once I got to that point, I think kind of the natural next step for me was like, well, okay, are there any alternatives? And I think that's kind of what the NCLC came out of.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because Naomi Klein mentions that, because, you know, people are, you know, they have their thoughts about Trump, but they don't think about how he got here. And Naomi Klein, you know, states that you have to think of every president that we've had led to Trump and reinforced, you know, how he came to power. And so I think people miss that, you know, in a lot of the conversations they have. They think he's just, you know, he comes out of nowhere, you know, but he didn't, you know. Every president, you know, helped create the situation and the circumstances for him to be there. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. So let's talk about that. So the Left Coalition, you're both co-founders, and how did you find each other? How did that happen?
We had the cousin connection.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I went on a train ride with Sarah, and we met Madeline Helling, the person that the main library is named after. She was the county librarian for years.
That's
Right.
A
My
local
stepson
celebrity.
growled at her at the train station when she was working there.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of growled at her too, because we talked to her and it was fascinating. We wanted to meet her. And she said this very strange sentence about how she admires Andrew Carnegie and how she wishes Andrew Carnegie was back. And it was like fawning over Andrew Carnegie. And we kind of looked at each other and like, what is that crazy obsession with rich people and their benevolent,
Right.
you know? And that, I think that's where the connection was made by growling at Madeline Helling.
Sounds like a song.
Yeah.
So you found each other, and then let's talk about, like, so you started in what, 2017?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
And then so it's kind of started as like what, reading groups? You started to.
No, we've always done stuff, you know. We've always tried to do the Fred Hampton thing, right? Like theory and practice.
Hmm.
So there were reading groups from very early on, but we always were out there trying to organize out in the community, whether it was supporting the warming shelter out on the San Juan Ridge.
We brought in speakers to talk
We
about.
brought in speakers,
Um,
some good talks.
we put up a May 1st International Workers' Day party in
Yeah,
Nevada City. We got a lot of people to show up.
that was great. Yeah, we did a real International Workers Day, and we got, I think, probably 100 people.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
it is
Yeah.
amazing. And I think, I mean, it's the first kind of international May Day or International Workers Day that I knew of in Nevada City. You know, I'm sure somebody out there is going to be like, well, you know, Utah Phillips, blah blah blah. But
Right.
in recent times, how
Right.
about? Yeah.
Did you meet Utah Phillips?
Did I ever meet him? Probably not. I don't think I ever did. Yeah. I mean, we had some overlapping circles, but nothing
Right.
that close.
Right. So let's talk about, you know, the philosophy of the Nevada County Left Coalition. So can you kind of talk about your mission statement and what you believe and what some of the projects are?
So I'll let you do that one.
I mean, I guess if we're talking on behalf of the NCLC here, I should mind my words, because it's a very democratic organization, and we make decisions by consensus, and so there's no one in charge, really no one person in charge there. But I think very broadly speaking, you could look at it as an anti-capitalist group. So we're actively looking to create society, economies that will replace capitalism. We're an anti-fascist group, right? So we see that fascism is on the rise in the United States and globally. And we see that as like a very dangerous immediate threat. And then I think about, like, in terms of like the kind of society that we want to create, that we're working towards. And again, like, there's different, I'm sure that people in the NCLC have different ideas or visions of what that would look like. But I think very broadly speaking, it would be a society that's organized around human needs rather than the demands of profit or making a profit. So, anything you want to add to that, Yinnon?
No, I think you did. You kind of nailed it. I think that was really good. We do recognize as the group that the end of capitalism and the kind of society that each of us individually want to see, it's probably not going to happen in our lifetime. So we kind of try to focus our energy into putting in work to make that a reality in the future. And that's pretty much what drives all of us. That and the immediate needs of our community around us.
And you know, when I first heard about the Left Coalition, I was really impressed by the things you're doing. Can you talk about some of the mutual aid projects you're doing and how you're helping the community, especially because when I really started to notice you was during the first part of COVID-19, when it first the outbreaks first started happening. We started the lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, the mutual aid thing, that's been a really successful program, and it's going on 8 months now. And we've been distributing food and goods every week, pretty much that entire time. We've had, I would say, dozens of people kind of working and volunteering on the one side of it, and we've distributed food and goods to hundreds of people and families over that time period. So that's been really successful, and that came about, I think, like very early on in COVID. We didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what was happening, but we saw some real needs opening up, right? They were shutting the county down, so people potentially couldn't leave their homes. And we also saw early on that different groups of people were going to be exposed to different levels of risk. And we just made the decision that in that moment, we felt like we had a choice, right? And one option was to kind of like retreat into like individualism, take care of ourselves, take care of like, our nuclear families. Or we said, no, like, let's take a different approach to this, which is let's try and think about our community and try and take care of the community as well. And that was scary, right? Like, I think that was again very early on in COVID. We really didn't know how exactly it was transmitted, how deadly it would be, but we decided that we were going to try and be as safe as possible, but we were going to get out there and try and help and serve people in the community. And yeah, we've been doing it ever since.
It's amazing. Now you're not only distributing food, you distribute also PPE, personal protective equipment. And I think I remember condoms at one point. That's fun.
Yeah. I mean, people, they're still getting it on.
Yeah. Well, you gotta fuck. So
gotta fuck.
Especially during these times, it really seems like it's really neat. You really gotta get that stress out, and
you do.
So I appreciate you keeping everybody's stress level minimized with the encouragement of safe sex. That's great. So what are some of the other items that you've distributed as well?
We do. We have a whole array of things for people who are houseless, from non-cook and non-perishable food items, underwear, socks, vitamins, and then we have grocery bags for people who have who can cook and need access for food. And we try to keep it as kind of local and fresh as possible, as much as we can, and as bountiful as possible. And we do give hand sanitizer and masks every week. What else do we have?
Do you provide lube?
Ooh,
we do.
We do.
I was just really okay. That's great.
Yeah. Well, you thought you were gonna catch us there, didn't you? But
I
we
did,
don't
I did.
have dental dams and female condoms.
Okay.
We had dental dam 1 week, but then it was hard to find it for some reason.
They're incredibly hard to find.
So these are donations mostly. You say I need condoms, I need lube, and then people are donating.
And
so we've had a.
Go ahead, Tor. Sorry.
Yeah, we've done a couple of sort of money donation fundraisers. We've also accepted sort of donations in kind. Some local organic farmers have been very generous, have given us a lot of organic produce. People bring food items in. Some local seamstresses have been really generous and donated a ton of like really cool looking hand sewn cloth masks.
Is that Vanessa?
Distributing those. It is.
Okay.
Among others, actually, there
Right.
have been a number of seamstresses in the area.
It's great.
It is great. It's really awesome. And then we've also done we do literature too. So we had a little zine on, kind of how to stay mentally healthy or emotionally healthy during a pandemic. We've had zines about myths about the police, right? Like how do you protect yourself in interactions with the police? So a lot of good stuff. It changes every week. But I guess maybe here's where I should give a shout out. Like we meet every week from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Grass Valley. And I should, again, I'm going to shout out the Unitarian Church. Those guys are amazing. They let us use their kind of front courtyard area. They've been really, really awesome. And so they've given us a physical location to set up, which has been a little bit of a struggle for us. But we have that now every Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The Unitarian Church in Grass Valley. Come down, get some PPE, some condoms, food, no dental dams. Sorry.
No, that's great. No, I appreciate you mentioning those items. Yeah, it's interesting that we're having this conversation today because I'm an emergency preparedness coordinator for an independent living center. That's a resource center for older adults and people with disabilities. And I talk to individuals that are isolated every day that have serious medical conditions, everything from COPD to HIV or whatever is happening. And I hear a lot of isolation. I hear a lot of misery every day. Loneliness, hopelessness. And today I lost it. I really, I just started sobbing and I was so angry. I was so fucking angry. I was like, capitalism has got to fucking go. It leaves too many people behind. It's a lie, and it's toxic in every form. And and I was so fucking angry today. I just couldn't believe it. And I'm just thinking that with the economic situation is worsening, and despite whatever is happening politically, I don't think it's going to improve much. And and I'm just like, with COVID now, one of the things we talked about in public health today was like the fact that they're trying to discourage people getting together during the holidays, because one of the reasons we have this outbreak, this spike, is because of people getting together for Halloween. And I'm just thinking it's going to get worse. And we're projected for that. There is a vaccine that is going to be available in December for first responders and healthcare workers. And then there will be a vaccine for everyone later. But we're still looking at a projected another year of going through this and dealing with this. So are you ready for that? How are you feeling? Like what are the next steps that that the left coalition is going to take?
It's a very good question. So I'll add to the origin story of the mutual aid, and kind of it all started on a porch. We were talking as we started seeing COVID numbers growing across the country. It was before the first lockdown, and we started talking and thinking about our county and how much this county relies on nonprofits, but more than anything for the social work, on volunteers, many of them elders themselves. And
right.
we kind of saw what is about, like what is brewing and what a disaster is about to happen, where Meals on Wheels, who relies on so many elderly volunteers, won't have those volunteers anymore. And all those people who rely on that, our county, we realize that our county is fucked if we don't move quick and do something. And I think it requires that same kind of mentality to tackle what is coming in the future, because I think it's going to get really bad. I don't want to imagine the misery that people who are going to go through evictions are going to go through.
Yeah, I'm hearing it every day. People dealing with housing insecurity, and they're saying I can't stay here. I got to get rid of this house, or I can't afford, I can't pay the bills. I can't, it's fucking horrible. And I'm sorry, keep going.
So yeah, I think for the future is it would require of us to do the same thing, is kind of analyze what is like, try to look into the future, knowing where we live, the kind of services that are actually available and who provides them, and try to be kind of fill in the gaps where it's necessary. It was really nice to see how every organization kind of got their act together as best as they could at the beginning. But there was a solid 2 months where there were no people besides us like doing much. It was like people really relied on us for a really long time to give them food so they don't starve every week.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean meals like you mentioned this, but like Meals on Wheels, I think overnight lost 90% of their volunteer force
Hmm.
because they were senior citizens,
Right.
so they couldn't go out, and they were servicing. I can't remember the numbers here, but it was like hundreds of people.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
So, I mean, let me ask you this: what has been happening in terms of how the community has responded to the work that you have done and continue to do? Now,
Go
I
ahead.
know you, by the way, I know that you wrote kind of a statement that was read to the Board of Supervisors. Is that correct?
About housing
Right,
Yeah,
because
that's
I know I
how
and
signed on to it.
evictions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't really we've only just started to mobilize around evictions and housing. We like to do more. Like if you're listening to this and you think capitalism is bullshit, um, and you think people should be able to live in houses or where they like, and not be evicted, get in touch because there's some work to do and we can provide organizational support to that. But yeah, initially we did publish a couple of articles about housing and evictions, get that statement together. It's something that really more work could be done on. And we've actually, we'll see what you think about this. We've talked a little bit about possibly getting some legal help and adding that to our suite of services that we're offering through mutual aid. So
Mhm.
have a weekly thing where if you're facing some kind of a housing issue, we've got a lawyer that you can talk to, who can give free legal advice, and you can sign up or you could do a walk-on kind of a thing. Do you think something like that might be helpful to the folks out there in the community? I mean, it sounds like you're talking to some of these people.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have community legal, and I don't
Yes.
know what happened. Um, I think that somehow fell apart, or I really don't know what happened, but it's definitely a need for sure. I would have to see. I mean, I still know the person that was the executive director of that, and um, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a need, and anybody listening or watching, if they want to discuss that with the Left Coalition, please do contact Tor or Yinnon. And I'll also keep my ears open to anything in relation to legal and housing.
But
Um,
maybe like one other thing on that. I mean,
mhm.
if we're being honest, like it's going to take more than that,
Right.
because and we saw this during um 2008 and kind of post 2008, and you can talk to people who were organizing locally around here then at that time, and they used every legal means at their disposal, court challenges and stuff, and they didn't stop shit.
Right.
People lost houses, got foreclosed on, and got evicted right and left.
Hmm.
And you talk to some of those activists who were active during that time, and it's actually it's a you can hear the pain in their voices still, right? I mean,
Hmm.
and obviously the folks who lost their houses as well. So I think it's important to recognize that while by all means we should try and mobilize and every legal avenue possible, whatever lawyers can do, whatever we can file in courts. If we're really serious about it, Like we're gonna have to do something else. Like it's gonna take more than that.
Right. Like the
Um,
moms in Oakland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that.
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, it's either that or people are gonna lose their homes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are. I mean, I hear it every day, and there isn't anything available. And, there's empty mansions on top of Banner. And yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
just throwing that out there.
Well, I appreciate it. So let's talk about how can the community connect with you? How could we find you?
So you can always stop by at our mutual aid and come say
Yeah.
hi.
That
is
is the probably the very best first step that you should do.
Yeah, nothing beats face to face. We've learned that this is how kind of the best way to build relationship. We are. You can find us on Facebook. You can message us on Facebook at the Nevada County Left Coalition. Hopefully, we'll have an Instagram account soon, so we're going to be more active on social media. You could join us in our weekly book club. We have a
Yeah,
radical
that's a
reading
good one.
group that is a really interesting. You don't have to be part of the NCLC. You just got to be interested in the material. So we have a really lively and interesting discussion. I think we have 17 people now on our reading group.
Yeah, the reading group is great. Here's what we're reading right now. I'm holding up Frantz Fanon's The Wretched of the Earth. So we're going to spending probably 6, 7, maybe even 8 weeks just on that book.
That's wonderful. So and is that Wednesdays?
Yeah, Wednesdays at 7.
Okay. Are you meeting are you doing like a social distancing like reading, or are you doing it virtually?
We're doing it virtually.
Okay.
Now.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah, and I
So-
should say, like, too, like with a mutual aid as well, especially with this uptick in cases, we are very cautious just in case you are concerned about COVID. Understandably so. If you do want to come down to the mutual aid thing, everybody there is social distancing, wearing masks, hand sanitizer available. So we want people to feel like they can comfortably come out and get what they need, or just say hi. And it's outdoors as well. So I think it's a fairly safe COVID situation.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. That helps a lot. So have you had any community members like that are upset about the work that you're doing, or that your political views contact you in any way?
Yeah, so when we try to advertise our mutual aid, we did it at a park in Grass Valley, and
Mhm.
when we try to advertise it on Facebook, a lot of people were enthusiastic about it, but we also got threatened with getting shot with paintball guns and to chase us out of the park.
Not just paintball guns. They were
Yeah.
calling for an armed march down to our mutual aid spot.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jesus.
So we definitely faced a lot of, well, at least online threats.
Wow. So, I mean, how are you? I mean, has it deterred you and the work that you're doing in any way, or changed your behavior?
I mean, that felt like an unstable situation because we felt a little bit exposed there in that park.
Mm-hmm.
And we were getting these threats. So we moved out of that park for a while. We operated out of a friend's backyard for a while and just did mobile distributions. And but I think after having kind of regrouped and gotten our act together, and I think just we understand the situation better as well. Like a lot's happened since then. We feel better prepared to face those kinds of situations, and also having a location now on private property, at the Unitarian Church, it feels quite secure. So I would say it did not deter us at all. In fact, to the opposite, it brought out quite a bit of community support.
Mm-hmm.
So after we got those threats, and I mean, maybe we should just pause there in a second, because like we're fucking handing out like tampons and like hand sanitizer,
Right.
and these guys want to come down and they're saying that we're gonna fucking burn down the neighborhood or some shit like that, right? Like
Right.
that's literally what they're saying. And they're saying we need to get down there, we need to stop these guys because we have like left in our name or something like that.
Right. Right.
It was the colors. We have our logos are black and red. They didn't
Right.
like that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah. And so the community came out and supported us the next day, right? We got a ton of people showed up in the community who were like, this is not cool. Like, we're
Mhm.
going to be here. If anything goes down, like, we got your
Mm.
backs. We had coffee shops who are saying, hey, you know, come in and mention the Nevada County Left Coalition. We'll give you free coffee. So it actually, I mean, sorry guys, it they want to take us down, just made us stronger. It brought out
Right.
new members, it brought out new support. And
So
so
it's like
I'd
you were
say,
like Obi-Wan in Star Wars. Strike me down,
yes,
I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
basically. I mean,
Yeah.
essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, it was a wonderful recruitment tool for us because we worked really hard to increase our numbers for, I don't know, solid 2 years. And after that, it seems like just everybody wants to either do work with the NCLC or want to be part of it.
Mhm.
And we've been growing really fast ever since. It
Yeah.
worked really to our advantage.
Yeah. So thanks guys, if you're listening to this.
So what are some of the items besides condoms and non-perishable food? Is there anything that you'd like to make requests for, the things that you need like regularly?
I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe let's just repeat that though, right? Like, if you do have food items, we absolutely will take them. If you do have a garden, we can take items from a garden as well. Or if you have a farm, we can take items from a farm. If you have fruit or fruit trees, we've actually done some gleaning as well. Masks, hand sewn masks, monetary donations. We're in the middle of a winter fundraising drive right now. So if you have any, just money is great.
And where can they find that link for donating?
It's on Facebook right now. I can give you the link though, and if you have any show notes, maybe you can post it in there or something.
If you email me the link, I'll put it in the show description.
Yeah.
We
So
had a person donate homemade tinctures.
Oh yeah.
Were very popular. That were people really enjoyed it. But even stuff like that, like homemade remedies, homemade,
Yeah.
even if you have any arts and craft supplies, we've
Yep.
been getting crayons and colors and color books. So and we know a lot of people have kids who are stuck at home. So like activities, we'll take all these kind of things.
We
now
have a
we're
local.
getting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say there's a local artist who has done some artwork for us, and she did a drawing for our masks, and so that it's a little piece of artwork that we, photocopy and send out with each mask that we send out as well. So there's room and a place for artists, and art as well is a part of it.
Okay. That's great. Now, we're entering into the cold weather. So, are you taking any clothing or blankets or anything like that?
So one of our members is kind of trying to work on putting together a clothes drive, and for winter clothes drive, we're not quite set up for it, but we will be soon.
Excellent. Well, listen, is there anything you want to say in closing to our community? Any last thoughts?
Well, it's been kind of rough, right? And kind of the cherry on top were all these fascist marches around town,
Right.
and it hasn't been easy. So first of all, like really hats down for everybody's resiliency. But if it bothers you, then you should do something, even if it's not through the NCLC. Is staying at home and being scared of these people shouldn't be an option. You need to figure out how you find your way to fight that, and I think that that'll put us in a better place.
Yeah, and I think to that I would just add, it's very easy living under kind of the combination of the United States government and the power of corporations and private property in this country. It's very easy, I think, to feel like really disempowered and to feel like we essentially don't have control over much of our lives, and that can be scary and that can be disheartening. And I will just say that, like, it is possible to like organize with people around you and to like really build up local institutions and organizations that do bring the power back into the hands of the people. And that is a thing. Like you can do that. And that's, I think, what we're really trying to do.
Well, thank you. I just want to say I am deeply honored and grateful for all the work that the Nevada County Left Coalition is doing, and I'm really proud that you're here and doing it, and just once again grateful. So thank you for everything that you're doing for our community, and it's a great comfort knowing that you're here.
Thank you for having us, and thank you also for everything you do. I know it is a ton. I don't know if your listeners know all about everything you do, but thank you so much for it. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I thank you. I really appreciate your kind words. So you can find the Nevada County Left Coalition on Facebook. Do you have a website?
Not yet. Though
Not
here
yet.
we're working on it.
Okay, so if you need assistance with the website, contact him on if you are you looking for somebody to assist with that?
Possibly, we might have. I think we have a person, but we can always use more help, though.
Okay, all right. So yeah, just one more time before we depart. Every place that we can find you. So Facebook, where else?
The
Did you say Instagram?
The Unitarian Universalist Church, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturdays. The Radical Reading Group, Wednesdays, 7 to 8 p.m. Look for us soon on Instagram. And anything else?
I think that's it for now.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you,
All right.
Brian.
Thank you both so much. All right, this is the Blind Man in Black. You can find me on I don't know, you can find me on Facebook, I guess, and you can find me on Apple Podcast and blindmaninblack.com. So now we're going to have and YouTube as well. So we're going to have an awkward ending, and I'll see you next time.
Still recording.